Welcome to Soul Spirit Stories, where emotions speak louder than words and every story touches the heart. If you believe in kindness, hope, and second chances, then this story is for you. So sit back, relax, and let your heart listen. It was late evening in New York City. The rain had just started to pour, softly at first, then stronger, washing the streets in glimmering reflections of light. People hurried under umbrellas, cars splashing water as they passed by. Inside a quiet hospital, a young woman named Lena sat by her son's bedside. Her little boy, Eli, was only 6 years old, his tiny hand clutching hers, his breathing shallow. Machines beeped slowly beside him. Lena's eyes were red from crying. She had been awake for 2 nights straight. The doctors had said that Eli needed urgent surgery, something that cost more than she could ever imagine. She worked as a waitress, living paycheck to paycheck, ever since her husband left when Eli was a baby. Now she was alone, completely alone. The doctor had given her 1 more day to arrange the money. "If we don't operate soon," he said gently, "we might lose him." Lena had spent the last 24 hours running from bank to bank, begging for help, calling every friend she could think of. But no one answered her cries. Now, all she could do was sit beside her son and whisper through her tears, "Please, baby, just hold on. Mommy's going to find a way." Across the city, in a luxurious skyscraper overlooking Central Park, Ethan Cole, one of the richest men in the country, stared out his glass office window. He was the CEO of Cole Industries, a company worth billions. Ethan had everything: money, fame, power, but no warmth in his heart. Ever since he lost his wife and daughter in a tragic accident 5 years ago, his world had gone cold. He buried himself in work, building his empire higher and higher, but inside he felt nothing. That night, he was supposed to attend a charity gala. He didn't want to, but his assistant insisted. "It'll look good for the company image, sir," she said. So he went. The grand ballroom was filled with laughter, champagne glasses clinking, and people showing off their wealth under glittering chandeliers. At one corner, a small fundraising booth had been set up by a local hospital. They were trying to raise money for children's surgeries, but no one seemed to care. Everyone was busy posing for cameras. Lena, desperate and soaked from the rain, had come there as her last hope. One of the nurses had told her about the charity event, saying that some wealthy people might donate. She didn't belong there. Her simple dress and trembling hands made her stand out in the crowd of diamonds and silk. But she didn't care. She walked up to one of the tables, clutching her son's photo. "Please," she said to a man in a tuxedo, "my son is very sick. He needs surgery. Can you please help?" The man frowned, uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, miss, I'm not—" He turned away before she could finish. She tried again, moving from one person to another, showing her son's photo, begging quietly. But no one listened. Some gave her disgusted looks, others pretended she wasn't even there, tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks. Finally, she approached a tall man standing alone near the window, Ethan Cole. She didn't know who he was. "Please, sir," she said softly, her voice trembling. "My son, he's dying. I just need someone to help me save him." Ethan turned to look at her. For a moment their eyes met, and his cold, distant, and hers filled with desperation and love. He didn't speak. He just stared at the small, wrinkled photograph she held out, a smiling little boy with bright eyes. Something stirred inside him. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something crack through his walls. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Lena," she whispered. "Lena Hayes," he hesitated. "Where is your son now?" "At St. Mary's Hospital," she said. They said he might not make it through the night." Ethan's jaw tightened. He handed his drink to a waiter and said, "Let's go." Lena blinked. "Whoa, what?" "Take me to him," he said firmly. They drove through the rain, silence filling the car except for Lena's quiet sobs. When they arrived at the hospital, The doctor looked surprised as Ethan walked in, his expensive suit drenched, his eyes sharp with determination. He didn't ask questions. He simply pulled out his phone and said, "Do whatever it takes. I'll cover the full cost, immediately." The doctor nodded, stunned. "Yes, Mr. Cole." Lena fell to her knees, crying. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Ethan placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Save your son. That's all that matters now." The surgery lasted 6 hours. Lena waited outside the operating room, her heart pounding with every tick of the clock. Ethan sat across from her, silent. When the doctor finally came out, he smiled. "He's going to be okay." Lena gasped, covering her mouth as tears streamed down her face. "Oh my God." "Thank you." She turned to Ethan, her voice shaking. "You saved my baby." "I don't know how to thank you." Ethan simply said, "You don't need to. Just be there for him." Days passed. Eli slowly recovered, smiling again, asking for his mom every morning. Ethan visited often, always bringing a small toy or storybook. At first he said it was just to check on the boy's progress, but soon it became more than that. He started enjoying those visits, the laughter, the simple warmth of Lena's smile, the way Eli called him Mr. Ethan. Lena noticed something too. Behind his strong, distant face, there was a deep sadness in his eyes. One evening, as they sat beside Eli's bed watching him sleep, Lena asked softly, "You lost someone, didn't you?" Ethan looked away. "My wife and daughter. 5 years ago, a car crash. I couldn't save them." Her eyes softened. "I'm so sorry." He nodded, his voice heavy. "I had all the money in the world, but not enough to keep them safe. Since then, I stopped believing in anything." Lena smiled gently. "You believed in saving my son. That means something." He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, he smiled. Weeks turned into months. Eli fully recovered, and Ethan made sure Lena had everything she needed: a stable home, a job at one of his company's offices, and medical insurance for her son. At first, she refused, saying she didn't want charity. But Ethan told her, "It's not charity, it's gratitude. You reminded me what it means to care." Lena worked hard, and soon she became one of the most dedicated employees in his foundation. Eli adored Ethan, following him around the office whenever they visited. "When I grow up, I want to be like you," the boy would say. Ethan would laugh, ruffling his hair. "You'll be better than me, kid." One evening, Ethan invited Lena and Eli to his home for dinner. It was the first time laughter echoed through his mansion in years. Eli ran around with joy, his tiny feet tapping against the marble floors, while Lena helped set the table. "You know," she said softly, "you've done more for us than anyone ever did. I don't even know how to repay you." Ethan smiled faintly. "You already have." She looked at him confused. "You brought light back into my life," he said. "You and Eli reminded me that love still exists, that hope isn't lost." Her eyes shimmered. That night after dinner, as they watched Eli fall asleep on the couch, Lena turned to Ethan and whispered, "Thank you for saving us both." Ethan looked at her, the woman who had once stood trembling in a ballroom, begging for help, and felt something pure, something real stir inside him. Months later, Ethan established a new foundation named Eli's Hope, dedicated to helping children who couldn't afford medical care. Lena worked as its director, and together they traveled across the country, saving hundreds of lives, just like Eli's. During a press conference, a journalist asked Ethan, "Mr. Cole, what inspired you to start this foundation?" Ethan smiled softly. "A mother's love," he said, "and a little boy's courage." Years later, Eli grew into a healthy, bright teenager. One evening, he came home from school and found Ethan and his mother sitting in the garden laughing. "Mom," Eli said, grinning, "are you and Mr. Ethan getting married or what?" Lena's cheeks turned red while Ethan laughed, a genuine, heartfelt laugh that had been lost for years. Ethan looked at Lena, his eyes warm. "Well, what do you think?" Lena smiled shyly. "Maybe it's time for another chance at life." The wedding was small and simple, held in the same hospital chapel where Ethan first met Lena. As they exchanged vows, Ethan whispered, "You saved me, too." And Lena, with tears of joy, replied, "We saved each other." Years later, when people spoke about Ethan Cole, they didn't just call him a billionaire. They called him the man who listened to a mother's cry, the man who turned his grief into love, his fortune into kindness, and his loneliness into family. And every time someone asked Lena how it all began, she would smile and say softly, "It started the moment he heard me say, 'Please save my son.'" Soft music fades in sometimes. One act of kindness can change not one life, but many, because when compassion meets courage, miracles happen. Thank you for watching Soul Spirit Stories I, where every story reminds us that love still exists in this world. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if this story touched your heart. And remember, even in your darkest moment, hope can find you.